the prelude in E-flat major from the fourth cello suite of Johann Sebastian Bach. But first, I have a story to tell. I have to tell you what it means to resolve dissonance. I was 18 when I first played this piece in public. The piece was beyond me then, but I didn't know it. I was going off to college and I wanted to show off. Other 18-year-old boys would show off by bench pressing 180 pounds or slam dunking the basketball. I played Bach. But somewhere halfway through the piece, I lost the sense of it. And I wandered through the space of its chord progressions with bumpy intonation. When I finally returned to E-flat major, at the end of the piece, it seemed off somehow. It seemed like I'd ended in the wrong key. They clapped anyway, but it took the next player in the recital to erase the dissonant aftertaste. So I made a career in science, but I never quit playing Bach. In fact, whenever I run into a seemingly unresolvable conundrum in the lab, I meditate on Bach. For example, just last week, a student in my lab was stuck with a scientific contradiction that neither of us could solve, so I told her, wait, I have to listen to a fugue. The interweaving fugal counterpoint traveled in different directions, riffing in cross purposes, notes fighting each other for attention, both melody lines wanting to define their own tonality. But then again, they followed a common bass line. Aha! I said, I know the solution to your problem, I said. I told her what the contradicting experiments had in common that tied them together. She knew what to do next. Problem solved. In the end, all of the seemingly unresolvable dissonances of science can be resolved eventually if you pay attention to all of the notes. That's the point I wish to explore with you today. Is problem solving in science like resolving dissonance in music? If problem solving in science, or social science, or political science, is like finding the notes that reconcile, finding the chords that bridge melodies, finding the underlying beat that ties it all together. If life is like one big long medley, then whenever things are going wrong, whenever dissonance and discord rule the day, then the solution is to listen. Listen to all the notes. So, let's do some critical listening. Starting from easy dissonance and going to increasingly hard dissonance. And let's see what the brain does with it. Here's some very easy dissonance. I set the tonality. I step away from the tonality. I step back to the tonality. Easy? Yes. Interesting? No. Let's try a harder dissonance. I set the tonality. I stepped away from the tonality. I stepped further away from the tonality. I turned a tonality corner and I looked around. I came full circle. Oh, it feels good to be back in the tonality. Solving moderately hard dissonance feels good. Now let's try an even harder dissonance. What was that? It didn't resolve. It was incomplete. The tonality was never really set. It left us with a dissonant aftertaste. We may wish we had never even heard it. I didn't resolve it. Instead, I stopped playing. In science, or social science, or political science, some problems are so hard you can't resolve them to save your life. Most of us avoid these problems. We choose not to hear them. We shut them out. If we know we can't solve a problem, we simply don't try because we don't want to be left with that dissonant aftertaste. And that's fine. It's fine. You can leave a problem unresolved if you don't actually need to solve the problem to save your life. But what if you need to solve the problem to save your life? At this point, I have to tell you, sadly, that my life is in danger. I've known it for many years now, and I spend my waking hours trying to find a way to survive. Not only is my life in danger, your life is in danger too. Everyone's life is in danger. Every human on this planet. In fact, the human species itself is in danger. In danger of extinction in the next century or so. And many other species are in danger too. Only the lowest forms of life are safe. The bacteria, the protists, and the plants. The plants are safe. And the insects. The danger I speak of, the seemingly irresolvable dissonance of our time, is the problem of overpopulation. Most of you already know what I'm talking about, and may be fighting the urge to tune it out as it triggers a dissonant aftertaste. But let me go forward with this. Let me be perfectly clear why I think this is life-threatening, even civilization-threatening. First, the math. The problem is, populations grow exponentially until they reach a limit. That is, they grow by doubling. That means they grow ever faster. That's not a surprise. It's the natural way of living things. If you've ever seen bean dip go bad, you know what I'm talking about. But now it's us. We're doubling. The global population reached 1 billion in 1802. In 1927, it reached 2 billion, doubling time of 125 years. 3 billion was reached in 1961, 4 billion in 1974, 5 billion in 1986, 6 billion in 1999, and 7 billion in 2011, a doubling time of about 45 years. Not only are we doubling, we're doubling faster. Practically no one believes we can double again. The total food resources required by the human population of 7 billion amount to well over half of the maximum total world capacity for food production, and that capacity itself is decreasing with time. Commercial fish stocks in the world's oceans have decreased by 90% over the last 50 years. All of the world's commercial fisheries are projected to be economically unsustainable by 2045. This includes farmed fish, because to feed a fish farm you need 5 pounds of wild-caught fish for every pound of farm-raised fish. On land, only 1/32 of the Earth's surface is suitable for growing food, and nearly 100% of that land is already farmed. In the U.S., we are losing 1 million acres of good farmland every year. More than 75% of the nation's fruit, vegetable, and dairy products are farmed on urban edge farms that are threatened by sprawling development. And that's not to mention the limits on waste production. We are putting carbon into the atmosphere at well beyond the rate it can be assimilated by plants, and that carbon is warming the earth, and global warming will have unknown effects on food production, probably negative effects. Rice flowers are not pollinated if nighttime temperatures do not fall below 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Alas, rice provides more than 1/5 of the world's caloric intake. It looks bleak. It looks like we have less than 45 years to live. But let's not assume that. Let's look carefully at how things could play out. How bad could it be? Okay, well, on the one hand, we could just stick our collective head in the sand and go about our reproductive business as usual. Then we would grow and grow until what? Wait, I have to listen to a bolero. Maurice Ravel once experimented with writing a symphonic work that only increased in volume, never decreased. He started the piece very quietly with a soft snare drum and a clarinet, and like the human population when it rose out of apricot. Excuse me just a second. Happens all the time. Then he added more instruments, bringing the volume up gradually, like the growth and migration of the human population through the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. Then the fullness of the strings comes in, like the birth of the industrial era, and the piece becomes lush and rich, like the good times of exponential growth. The brass comes in, the cymbals crash, and the orchestra wails and roars. The sound gets frantic and strained, like the inner city of a booming metropolis that is packed to the limit of human density. At this point, Ravel discovers that an orchestra cannot, in fact, play infinitely loud. And after reaching a deafening fortissimo, the music collapses in a heap. The last note is the loudest. Don't clap for that ending. That is the end of humanity. The end of life as we know it. Bolero teaches us that there are limits. The human population cannot, in fact, grow infinitely large. It will reach a limit. But will we end that way? Will we grow until there's nowhere left to grow? Will we eat the last stunted baby tuna fish in the ocean? Eat the last grain of rice? Pollute the earth like there's no tomorrow and go out with a bang, obstinately playing the same melody, never changing our tune, even as starvation carries us to the very edge of sanity? If we do, the end can come very quickly. Not as quickly as Bolero, but quickly. And as the old Spanish proverb says, civilization and anarchy are only 7 meals apart. With resources stretched to the limit, civilization becoming uncivil will pop like a balloon which, once punctured, does not stop popping, but deflates completely.